It doesn't matter which one you put, which one you put to it, so you just put 2 for your first X, and then 3 for your Y value. And then 6 for your X, 6 for your Y.
Where is this? Oh, she's in the front. I was like, wait, I was like, where are you?
Okay, we're ready, good. You guys can turn in homework 2. And if you finish 3 and 4, I can grade that and get back to your quiz. Do you guys prefer to have a quiz or test on a Friday or a Monday? Friday. Okay. Would you prefer to have this first, like, quiz on Friday?
But usually I have on Friday. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do this one. Okay, we can move this first one to Monday, because Lauren Goodman's not even ready for it either. She would have to take it next week. So quiz is now Monday instead of Friday.
5 quizzes on Friday. It's like, that's
Yeah,
not
you guys have
that
like a lot
bad.
of tests and stuff going on. I like to think of myself as an easygoing person. I don't know, maybe you perceive me differently. But yeah, just let me know.
It is boring.
As a student,
Oh wait, no, it's fine.
all through grade school and high school, graduated a year late, went to did 2 years at community college, transferred, had to do another 3 years in college, so I know what it's like to be a student. Alright. I'm hoping to get through chapter 3 today. If we don't, since we moved to the quiz, I think we'll be fine finishing up this week. We might start into chapter 4.
These papers are due tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Alright, do we get, is this about where we stopped?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So increasing opportunity cost. Increasing opportunity cost causes the production possibility frontier to be bowed outward because resources are not equally productive in all activities. So you thinking if a farmer is not gonna be as productive working in a factory as he would be working in a field, because his skill set as a farmer is geared towards field, growing things, etc., versus working in a factory where he'll have to learn how to use a new machine to produce whatever goods they're making there. So we allocate the most skillful farmers and the most fertile land to the production of food to be most efficient. So on a possibility frontier, there are many possibilities. So how do we know which point on the frontier is the best one? We know by calculating and comparing the marginal cost to the marginal benefit. Again, to repeat those, we're still writing. Increasing opportunity cost causes the production possibility frontier to be bowed outward because resources are not equally productive in all activities. So with a farmer, he's going to be more productive in a field than in a factory. So what we do is we allocate, or give out, if you remember the definition, allocate the most skillful farmers and the most fertile land to the production of food. That way we're being most efficient with our resources. And there are many possibilities on the frontier. And so how do we know which point on the frontier is the best one? We know by looking at the marginal cost and the marginal benefit and comparing those two. Okay, so the marginal cost, the opportunity cost of producing one more unit of a good or service. So we've already looked at that definition multiple times, so just as a reminder. So in the top graph, you can see an increase in the opportunity cost of producing more tapes and less soda. So as the steps move down, they get steeper. So the larger, along that y-axis we get. So when we're switching from producing all soda, no tapes, to 1 million tapes per month and like 14 million bottles of soda, it's not that much of a price difference. The opportunity cost isn't as great, but when we're switching from producing all soda to, let's say, producing 3 million tapes per month and only about 8 million soda bottles, that opportunity cost is greater because we're giving up more bottles of soda to produce the tapes, right? Okay. So B is showing the marginal cost of a tape. The marginal cost of each additional tape in terms of foregone soda increases, so the marginal cost curve slopes upwards. So we have our marginal cost sloping upwards, because as we produce more tapes, the marginal cost is increasing. Did you follow that? Okay. Marginal benefit is that benefit a person receives from consuming one or more units of a good or service. And it's how people feel about different quantities of goods and cannot be derived from just the production possibility frontier. So we have the marginal benefit. Is this a positive or negative slope?
Negative.
Negative, right. So this is measured as the maximum amount that a person is willing to pay for one more unit of whatever's being produced. So again, they're using tapes on the x-axis, and then the y-axis is willingness to pay bottles of soda per tape. Okay, so people are less willing to pay when the bottles of soda per tape are at 5, as they are when it's at like 4.5. So they're more willing to pay per bottle of soda as the number of tapes increases. So that's the marginal benefit. So, and it is a general principle that says the more we have of any good or service, the smaller our marginal benefit from it. So it's the principle of decreasing marginal benefit. So this graph, people are more willing to pay more money if there are fewer tapes available than if there are a lot of tapes available. So if we think about this in terms of products that are still on the market today, if there are only 100 iPads that are produced each month, and you really want that iPad, you're going to be willing to pay more for that iPad. But if there's like thousands of them on the market, oh, well, I can't really afford it this paycheck, I'll just get the next paycheck, and they're available. You can get it any time. Does that make more sense? All right, so the opportunity costs of a tape is the amount of soda people must forego to get another tape. So giving up the tape, the cost of the tape is, okay, so the soda is the opportunity cost. The marginal benefit is from a tape. There's so many typos, I apologize. So the marginal benefit from a tape is the amount of soda people are willing to forego to get another tape. So the opportunity cost is looking at what people must give up, and then the marginal benefit is what they're willing to give up. All right. And then resource use is efficient when we produce the goods and services that we value most highly. Okay?
What do you mean by tape? Like, I'm sorry.
It's like a cassette tape,
Okay,
videotape.
okay,
I think that's referring to a cassette tape.
okay, okay.
But yeah,
Okay, got
so
it.
back in the day when I was young.
No,
that's-
I remember that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking it was Scotch tape. Like, soda.
You can tape your soda bottles together.
Interchangeable.
Yeah, so this textbook is kind of old. I encourage Mrs. Breen to look at getting an updated
Yeah.
version at least. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so we're using our resources efficiently when we're producing the goods and services that we're valuing most highly. In other words, we are being efficient when we get to a point where producing one more of good A would mean we'd have to give up some of good B that's being produced. So we're having to choose between two highly valued goods. That doesn't really make sense to me. Let me try. Because of limited resources, we get to a point where if we want to produce not only soda but those tapes, we're going to have to give up some of the soda to get those tapes.
Talking about the marginal benefit, I think the way I'm thinking about it is different than the way it was worded, because when I hear marginal benefit, I'm thinking that like, the benefit is the tape that you're getting by giving up the soda. Like, is that still an accurate way of thinking about it?
Yeah.
Okay, it's just works out a little bit differently. Okay, are you sure?
Yeah, so the benefit is, marginal benefit is from tape is the amount of soda that people are willing to give up to get another tape. So it doesn't really make
It also
sense
takes
here.
up the soda as the cost. Cause like, you're not getting the cost anymore because
Right.
you're doing the tape.
And I could have typed this in wrong, I do these at like 11 o'clock at night.
Okay.
So, does anyone have their textbook open too?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, marginal benefit. Does anyone have it open?
Mhm.
Okay, what's it say?
Says, is the benefit that a person receives from consuming one more unit of per good or service.
Okay, yeah, so it's the additional benefit of consuming that extra good. What does it say under marginal cost right there? Yeah,
The opportunity cost of producing one more unit of a good or service.
okay, what about marginal cost? So it's, I think, opportunity cost?
That's marginal cost.
Say it
Says
again.
marginal cost is the opportunity cost of producing one more unit of a good or service.
Okay. So maybe it should be a marginal cost instead of marginal benefit. Okay, I'll have to change that before I upload it. Alright, so, where were we? Product efficiency is producing any given good or service using the fewest possible resources. So, we don't wanna spend a lot of money on all of these machines, we wanna get by with a few machines and a lot of output, right? So, being efficient, using fewer resources to produce more goods and services. And then allocative efficiency is producing the kinds of goods and services that will make people the happiest and producing them in the correct amounts. So, it doesn't make sense to produce, what's a random item, like, what nobody uses. 10 million fly swatters if you're in an area where there's no flies, like there's no flies, or it's in an off season when there aren't many flies. So by looking at the kinds of services and goods that people want and make them most happy, we produce those items versus just random items that people don't necessarily want and need. Okay. Being efficient. So we can look at the marginal cost and the marginal benefit to determine how much to produce and what to produce. So on this graph, we have the positive slope is your marginal cost, the negative one is your marginal benefit. And then at this point here, the benefit exceeds the cost, so you can see the benefit's higher than what you're paying. And then over here, the cost is higher than the benefit, so the cost is exceeding the benefit. So this, we're getting more out of what, so the bottles of soda that people are willing to forgo versus the bottles of soda that people must forego. Ideally, we wanna meet at the center point where we're in equilibrium.
Jeez.
So, looking at the graph, we can see that if we produce 1.5 million tapes, then the marginal cost is, so looking at the point on the marginal cost line, it's 2 bottles of soda. And then the marginal benefit, is 4 bottles of soda. How did we get that? Oh, here, going up to here, so the marginal benefit is 4 bottles of soda. So in this case, the marginal cost is less than the marginal benefit, so we get a smiley face. That's the choice or product that you produce. So here we have people who are willing to pay more than it costs to produce a tape, and the cost is only 2, but they're willing to pay 4. So, what's an example of a good that maybe is lower, has a lower price, but people would probably pay more for it if they charged more?
A large Coke at McDonald's.
A large Coke, okay, so what's a large Coke at McDonald's?
Yeah.
$1, and how much would you be willing to pay?
I'd pay 2.
Okay, there you go. That are like our preschool classes, we charge $10, and we have a large demand for it. So we have people calling every day like, sorry, we're on a waiting list. So we could easily increase the price to $15, we would still have a lot of demand. But, okay, so that's where we're at here. And then if we're producing 3.5 million tapes, then the marginal cost would be 4. Marginal cost is at 4, but we're only willing to pay 2. So the cost is more than what we're willing to pay. So marginal cost is greater than marginal benefit for any phase. We won't want to do that, right? If we produce 2.5 million tapes, the marginal cost is 3 bottles of soda, and the marginal benefit is 3 bottles as well. So we're at that center point. And that's a point of efficiency because if more tapes are produced, then the marginal cost of the foregone soda is too high. At this point, is worth more than the additional tapes that would be produced. Okay, is this helpful, or do you guys pretty much pick this up when you're reading the chapter?
I understand the wording, but I don't understand the graph. Like, I get the point of it and why things happen, I just don't get the
Okay,
graphs.
just basically looking at what's going on the x-axis and what's happening on the y-axis. And then this is looking at where your marginal cost is. So the marginal cost of producing 3.5 million tapes is 4 bottles of soda. So if we want to produce 3.5 million of tape, it's costing us 4 million bottles of soda.
And so if we wanna do 2.5, it's costing us 3. So we
Right.
say- Okay.
So
I
it's
see
more
what I'm
equal.
looking at, but, okay.
Yeah.
Right. So on the slide before this one, it has the marginal benefit more than the marginal cost, and then also has a smiley face. And then on the next slide, they're equal and it also has a smiley face. So either one of those are good.
Yeah, so here you're not being as efficient,
Okay,
whereas when they're equal, you're being more efficient.
okay.
Does that make sense?
So the one before
So
is
there's
better
room
than
for
this one?
potential because you could be charging 4 units, like you'd be willing to pay that 4 units, so we're not using our resources to the highest
Okay.
efficiency.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's like that
But
was the consumer, it's good, but the other one is like good all around.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so customers would be willing to pay more, so you might as well charge more.
Okay, yeah,
Right?
okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Alright. Do that. So, technological change, here we go. So when we develop new goods and better ways of producing goods and services, we can expand our possibility frontier, production frontier. And that's kind of showing economic growth in this figure. So capital accumulation is the growth of capital resources. So just finding ways to better use our resources or producing things that will help us, like producing a machine that will help us produce more goods and services later, in a sense. We'll get to it later too. So economic growth is an expansion in production. Even with it, we still face opportunity costs and scarcity. We're just getting better at using our resources. So figure 3.5 shows us what would happen if we held soda constant. And so on our axes we have tapes, million per month, and then tape making machines per month. Excuse me. So if we devote no resources to producing tape making machines, we're producing at point A, where we can make 5 million tapes per month, but we're not making any tape producing machines. If we move and produce 3 million tapes per month, moving in, we can produce 6 tape making machines. So we're at point B. So we're moving from point A to point B. So by giving up, what is it, 2 units of tapes, we can gain 6 units of tape making machines. Does that make sense how I said that? Okay. And then if we produce no tapes, we can produce 10 tape making machines a month at point C. So we follow all the crazy arrows. I did that because it's kind of like hard to see, like A, B, and C, so I don't know if it's helping those of you who are further away. Okay, so if we want to make tape making machines, we're going to have to give up tapes. That's showing the line in blue. And then I think I continue this on. No, okay. And then the red is showing if we are making tape producing machines, by giving up tapes now to make the machines that'll make more tapes, we can have more tapes in the future. Does that make sense? It's a little kind of...
Can you reiterate that?
Yeah. So we're comparing tapes and then also the machines that make the tapes. And so if we want to increase our production of tapes in the future, we're going to have to make machines to make the tapes, right? So by giving up tapes now, we can make machines and have even more tapes in the future and push our resources out with a possibility curve. Did that make more sense that way? Okay. It's kind of hard to say when you're comparing something and then the machine that makes the something, but essentially that's what it's doing. So we'd move out to this red curve and then move from there. So you can, this is saying that at 5 tapes, we would still be at 6, but our possibility frontier curves out. So economic growth is not free. There's an example of this in your homework. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So the opportunity cost of more tapes in the future is that you have to have fewer tapes available today, right? Because if we're not making all those units of tapes and we're using some of our resources to make the machines, then we're giving up tapes now, but the machines are going to mean we have more tapes in the future. So, okay, so tapes produced today with no resources dedicated to capital accumulation, we have 4 units, but if the tapes we could produce in the future were dedicated to resources to make those tape making machines, we have capital accumulation now, because we have, in the future, we'll be able to produce more. Okay. So on a bigger scale, so we were just comparing tapes and tape making machines, but if we look at a bigger or global scale, you can see the economic growth in the United States and Hong Kong. So to expand the production possibility frontier, we have to devote fewer resources to producing consumption goods, so goods and services that we're just getting as to consume, like we're not using them towards capital. So we devote fewer resources to producing consumption goods and more resources to accumulating capital and developing technology so that we can produce more consumption goods in the future. Are you following along with this? Okay. If you kind of like follow along, it makes sense, but if you get lost somewhere in the way, just let me know and I'll try and back up. So by decreasing today's consumption, the opportunity cost and the future consumption, the opportunity cost of an increase in the future will increase future consumption. So by consuming less today, the opportunity cost of an increase in the future is, the opportunity cost is the increase that will occur in the future. Okay. So because Hong Kong devoted more resources to accumulating capital, so let's figure out what this graph is doing. So consumption of goods, and then capital goods per person. So this little graph here, we have Hong Kong. This one that expands a little further is the United States. And then this red line is showing the economic growth. And in the book, it was saying that the United States dedicated, I think, 1/5 of resources towards capital accumulation, whereas Hong Kong dedicated 1/3. So they're dedicating a higher amount to capital accumulation than they are goods that they're consuming now. So by doing that, in the future, they actually will catch up and might even surpass us because we're not producing the same like fraction that they are. They're producing a higher fraction or quantity of accumulated goods. Still following? Yeah, okay. But then if Hong Kong keeps at this pace, okay, so if it keeps at this pace, it's going to go beyond the United States production possibility frontier. But if Hong Kong decides to increase their consumption now, it's going to decrease their capital accumulation, and it'll slow their economic growth. Okay. So specialization is concentrating on the production of only one good or a few goods. So instead of, like when you're making a car, making the windshield, the doors, the bolts, the screws, all of that, it's just looking at, okay, we're just going to specialize in the windshields that are used on trucks, instead of focusing on all the other things. So when they do that, you kind of get better at producing a good, and you gain a comparative advantage, which is when a person can perform an activity at a lower opportunity cost than anyone else. So no one excels at everything, except for maybe Mary Poppins, who is practically perfect in every way, right? But in reality, no one excels at everything. So we all have different strengths and weaknesses. Some of us are better at ballet, some of us are better at math, some of us are better at guitar, piano, singing. So looking at what you're most good at and what you have the lowest opportunity cost in, that's where you have your comparative advantage. The same can be said of land and capital. So an example is one plot of land that is fertile but has no mineral deposits, and then another has a great view but it's not fertile. So each of them has something that they're better at. So the first one is that it's fertile, and then the other one is that has a great view. So those would be their comparative advantages. And then as far as machineries go, a machine might be very precise and be really great at producing whatever it is, but it could break down a lot. So just looking at that as well. So some people can outperform others in many activities, but they do not have a comparative advantage in every activity. It's just those that they specialize or excel in. Okay. Tom, which is cut off. This is kind of involved. I don't know if we'll get through it, but we'll go ahead and start. So Tom uses all of his resources to make, he can produce, just to make tapes, he can produce 4,000 lengths of tape per hour. So that's here on the x-axis, and this is the cases that he makes 1,000 in thousands per hour. So if Tom is using all of his resources, he can make 4,000 lengths of tape per hour. But if he, and then up here we have at 0.33, if he's doing all tape, if he's only producing cases, he's only at 0.33. We'll continue this tomorrow. If you have your homework, go ahead and turn it in if you didn't get a chance to.
Will we get those back on Friday so we can do studies instead?
I'm trying to get it back to you before that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you gonna give us like a study guide or something? Kinda like
Yeah,
review.
we'll review